Hey guys, so I was looking at my 2011 Sienna just recently underneath, and I noticed that I have a decent amount of rust actually on the rear suspension. So if you do have a Sienna, even a fairly recent model year, just keep an eye out for this. What I'm going to do today is do some preventative maintenance on this. I'm going to go ahead and try to remove as much as I can on the surface and then treat it so that it will at least slow it down. I'm going to be using a drill with a wire brush wheel. You could also use a cup style wire brush wheel, and that can help with getting into some of the crevices that you'll see under here. After you clean off as much as you can of the surface rust, you're going to want to use a 220 grit, 150 grit potentially would work, a little bit coarse, but 220 grit sandpaper. Then finally you're going to use your brake parts cleaner to get as much as you can of the surface contaminants off, and then a clean cloth to wipe, and then finally I'm going to be using Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer, which says it instantly converts rust. The main thing here is I want to convert that oxidation to something that is inert, that won't continue to spread. So I've gotten a lot of the surface rust off with the wire brush wheel. There are still areas though that I can't reach that you could use a toothbrush style wire brush wheel to get to. So right here, right down here around the seat for the spring here. So instead what I am going to use is a flathead, and I'm going to scrape what I can off and then sand the rest, because that's what I've got to work with. You can see there's a lot of material that's actually coming off, so that's good. The more you can get off in these situations, the better. If you are trying to do this to large portions of a vehicle, then I would recommend dustless blasting or sandblasting by a professional, because that is going to be the absolute best way to get every little bit of rust off. It'll remove all the rust and then usually any surface paint, so then you can treat after the fact. It can range for an entire bottom of a vehicle to get blasted, dustless blasting. I got a quote recently, it's about $700. If you're in a bigger city, it's probably going to be more than that, just because of cost of living and everything. But that's the best way to get all this rust off. I am surprised that this vehicle is a 2011, that it does have this much rust on it. I know the Toyota Tacomas in the early 2000s, I think 2000 be 99 to 2003, they had such major frame rust that all of those Toyota Tacomas were recalled. And Toyota, if you have a early 2000s Tacoma, check on that recall, because they will actually pay and put an entire new chassis under your truck. So they'll put an entire new frame under it for you for free. It's a 4-day job usually, but they literally take the entire body, all the mechanicals, all the electrical, everything off, and then they will put a brand new chassis under your Tacoma. So that's something worth doing. Oh, the joy of working on cars on your own. This is what weekends are for, working, fixing. You can see where rust develops on any vehicle, and that's usually where you have to do connection points, where you have to weld, because it's almost impossible once you weld a piece of metal to another one to totally seal that surface again. When I used to weld, that was one of the hardest things to do, was cleaning the welds thoroughly after the fact, removing any contaminants from those crevices, and then treating it. And no matter what you do, really, once you weld something, you are going to end up with rust in the long run. No other way, unless you are welding something like aluminum or stainless steel or titanium, of course. Apologize to my Sienna for doing this to it. Sticking a screwdriver up somewhere it doesn't belong, probably. There is such nasty rust up in here, though. It is flaky. It's thick. Look at that. Sheesh. So this is where you definitely want to have a wire brush wheel, or a wire brush small one, where you can try to get up in here. But no matter what, even if you do that, you're not going to get all this out. That's nasty. So when you are cleaning rust off any vehicle, don't get too carried away. Try to get the critical parts. If this is your daily driver, get the critical parts as clean as you can from rust, and then treat. But no matter what you do, you're always going to have more rust down the road. This is just to slow down the decay. Do not get carried away with this. You're diminishing returns. This is not a show car. After you spray it down, there's kind of a haze that's left over, so I think just basically use a dry, clean cloth and wipe as much as you can off of here. Again, this is not a professional job, but you wouldn't be watching this if you were a professional. But I've done this similar method on other applications, and surprisingly, this rust paint prevented rust for 2 years, really. So there are other heavier duty rust preventers out there. The heavier duty rust preventers are paint on with a brush, so they're heavier duty. You won't get that smooth finish, but they can give you a harder, longer lasting finish. But it is hard to even with a brush get to some of these areas. So And once you've wiped everything down, you want to use your rust preventer and try to get all the crevices. What you don't want to do, in my opinion, is try to seal this with like a bed liner or a rubber sealant, because they can actually do what they're supposed to and create a coating on top that actually can retain some moisture, and you may end up actually sealing in future moisture. So, and that's also an opinion of some professionals I've talked to, that it's not good to use bed liner on parts that are already rusted. If you have a clean, brand new pickup truck or a car that you want to put a undercoating on, then you can use a undercoating, a rubber undercoating, but you just don't want to do it when you've already got rust. Alright, so when you're done, you should make sure you just cover every area that you sanded and cleaned, and this will help prevent a lot of the future corrosion that could actually just create weakness in the suspension itself. So, hope this helps you guys out. If you've got a Sienna, double check the rear suspension and make sure you take care of any rust.